Can you tell us about you and your child's experience with feeding by mouth in the NICU?
Feeding by mouth was very rough. She had very poor. She didn't have the strength or the stamina to be able to complete her feeds. Her coordination, suck, swallow, breathe was not the very best, and she would get very tired very easily.
Okay.
I didn't need to direct breastfeed. She was only bottle fed.
Very excited to start being able to feed him. It's a major milestone that they can get to, and as a parent, you just can't wait for the time that you can start actually feeding your baby in the NICU. Those are definitely good milestones there. We definitely started a little later just because his oxygen levels weren't where they needed to be. We started more at the 38-week mark for him rather than like the 36-week mark for him. Basically tolerating little bit, a few ounces milliliters by mouth with a bottle, working closely with the speech therapist from the NICU. We got him to tolerate like more of the passy with my breast milk, doing some passy dips and stuff to encourage that suck, swallow, breathe coordination. We tried different bottles and we finally found one that we were able to definitely start using with him, and we went from there. Once we found a nice little good positive reaction from him with the nice bottle and flow size, we were able to really then keep going with that, and that's what we kind of stuck with to the end of the course of our NICU stay. Our first offering, of course, PO, and whatever he wasn't able to tolerate PO, then we would present it through the NG tube. Upon one of our meetings with the physicians and with the team, I think the mark of 44 weeks came along, and that's when they're like, if we get to that mark and he's still not having what we want him to be eating by mouth, then we have to consider a G tube. So we got to the 44-week mark and he still wasn't at that where they needed to, but doctors even thought like he'll get there. He's just right there already, because he was close, and he was close. He was getting really close, but he just wasn't. He'll finish like 3 in a row, and then kind of the last one he wasn't able to tolerate like more than 50% of it. So we would take a step back, So we'll get there, and then we kind of take a little step back. So that's why doctors weren't really pushing it, and I guess we didn't think he needed it at the time, because all of us believed, even the NICU staff believed, that he was right there. It was a slow start for us. It was a slow start for our baby to start feeding. He wasn't tolerating as much the amount that they wanted volume wise. He tried it, but he would have also some GI, gastroenterology, had to be involved. So along with that, we also had some complications with his digestive systems, where he wasn't going as often as he'd wanted. He'd do a retching, he had reflux. So around that time too, we suspected that he probably had some allergies to something that I was probably having. So I would eliminate from my diet in order for him to kind of feel better with his stomach. We had to do a bunch of GI workup. We went through an upper GI, a lower GI, and a colon biopsy to rule out Hirschsprung's, because we thought it might have been that for a while. But we had to just give him a lot of help to go to the restroom. So we felt that pushed him back too. He wasn't feeling very happy or very well, so he wouldn't want to be eating. I'm a speech pathologist too, and I also work with pediatrics, but more so with adults in that case. So being a speech pathologist with having a baby with feeding issues is never say never. Never say never. It is definitely stressful. Being in the NICU as a speech therapist, the background, what's going on, But I remember clearly in school, Tanis, you cannot treat your own patient, your own kids. You cannot treat, family members because you miss things. And that's something that I do realize that I did, not that it's in a bad, or you just miss things, you don't want to see certain things. Sometimes you don't want to accept that, he's having difficulty with this. He's having, so that was one of my challenges as being a speech pathologist in the NICU, having some background in feeding was definitely hard.
Lactation would come in and try and help for him to latch on, and he grasped that part, but as far as being able to swallow, he looked like he was doing great, and he looked fine, but then the monitors would say something different. It would always pick up a elevated heart rate, or he would kind of have watery eyes, which would indicate that he was aspirating. So lactation and a speech therapist would come in and try and work with him on just laughing and swallowing and seeing if there's any progress. So we would do that every week for like maybe twice a week. His NICU doctor coming in and discussing with my husband and I on the next step would be the G-tube placement. And they basically had a meeting with us and some other team members, speech, I want to say gastro or some another doctor on board, and they kind of just showed us what we would expect with the G-tube on a doll, and how to care for it, and how it looks intimidating, but it really isn't. And so from there, we just kind of contemplated on what we wanted to do. At this point, he was already in the NICU for 4 months. And so that was the only thing holding him up, was the feeding issue. Other than that, he would have been ready to go home. I never really heard of that. I know about a peg. I mean, I know it's probably similar. And I was thinking, oh, well, how am I going to care for it at home? That was my next thought. And my husband just heard surgery and he was like, oh gosh, like he freaked out. But like I said, we felt more comfortable after the meeting. And the initial thought of being nervous and like kind of reserved went to, okay, let's just go for it. It's the best decision we feel for him. How long they were looking at him having it for, they just told me basically just take it day by day. And there were therapists that we were going to be working with, speech therapists that was going to come in and help with eating, drinking. So it was just not a definite answer on how long. They just told us about some kids have it for 3 months, and then some have it for a year or so. He actually was dealing with a protein intolerance, so I was having the signs of like the diarrhea and the vomiting, and it came down to he had a protein intolerance. So I did not. I just kind of stored my milk and just kind of slowly stopped pumping.